we are going to spend a little time with Tanya Palamati. She is a marine biologist and National Geographic explorer who's dedicating her PhD project to the study of manta rays and their possible interaction with plastic debris. So we just talked to Martina Capriati about an hour ago now and learned a little bit about her microplastic research. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about the megafauna. So during her internship in Mexico, she became passionate about sharks and rays and realized that they are very vulnerable to human pressure, to habitat loss, to ocean pollution. And so after an amazing encounter with oceanic mantas in the Pacific, she decided to continue her studies to focus on the threats they're facing in our very quickly changing ocean. So I'm going to bring Tanya in with us live. Hey, Tanya, how are you?
Hi, Joe. Nice to be here with you tonight. Here.
Tonight for you. Yeah, I think it's just after lunchtime here in Canada. It is so good to see you and to have you joining us. We've had such a great crew following along today as well. We've had people saying hi from the US, from Canada, from places in South America, like Argentina and Brazil, places in Europe closer to you, like Germany, France, and the UK. We are so excited to get to know you a little better, to learn a little bit of your work, and then I bet there'll be a few questions for you.
That's amazing. I'm so excited, and thank you for the invitation. So I'm gonna share my screen so that you will be able to see my presentation. Here we are. Okay. Can you see it?
Looks good. Beautiful.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for connecting with us tonight. And thank you, Joe, of course, for inviting me to this amazing event. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a story tonight, a story of a little girl that was born in a beautiful, amazing place in Italy. As I said, as Joe said, I'm from Italy, and I'm from a very, very beautiful place that is in the northern part of Italy, in the middle of the mountains, and it's called Val Camonica. And this place is surrounded by beautiful mountains and landscape. As you can see in these images, it's full of nature over there. And growing up in this environment, I grew up as, I don't know if in America you know Heidi. So this little girl that is born in the Alps and grows up surrounded by nature. Well, I did the same. So as Heidi, so I grew up in the mountains, and I did what every mountain girl do when she's young. So I went in the forest looking for mushrooms, and I rode horses and played with the wildlife, and it was an amazing young age. But then growing up, I started realizing that what really, really inspired me and what really moved me, it was the ocean. So far from where I was born, so a different environment, but same nature. So I started being involved in marine biology because I started doing diving. So when I started scuba diving, I discovered this amazing new space, because it's totally a new world, from the mountains going into the ocean. And people were always asking me, but how can you go down there with all that water above you? So people from my hometown still cannot realize how I could get to the ocean. But diving in the Indian Ocean, these images are from my very, very first diving course. And I had these beautiful encounters with fish, with turtles, with many, many wildlife. But one was the one that changed completely my life. And this encounter was a snapshot during the second dive of my life. And it was this encounter that is still in my memory, but I have the luck to have also a picture of that, because it was my first picture, underwater picture. And you're gonna see it now. So here is my favorite picture, my favorite underwater picture. Probably you see a blurred image with some fish going around, but actually there is one very special fish here. Probably it's not very clear. And so I want to tell you that this encounter was the one that made me decide to go into marine biology field. So that's when I decided I wanted to be a marine biologist and to spend most of my time underwater or close to the ocean and to do something to help the ocean and ocean creatures. Well, in this picture, there is a shark. There is a whale shark. So it's not that easy to see, but it's a whale shark. So when I saw the whale shark for the first time, I made my choice. And so I enrolled in a marine biology course in Italy, and I studied my master degree in Italy. And then during my master, I decided to travel, to go abroad. And so I traveled all the way to Mexico, on the other side of the planet, in order to study what I always wanted to. So sharks and rays. And so that's why I got to Baja California Sur. And that's an amazing place where I started working with fishermen. So I was doing research with fishing activity. So I was, of course, working with dead animals that came from the fisheries. And we were taking biological samples and measurements and everything. And I did that for my master thesis. But I also had the opportunity to work with live sharks. And so it was so exciting because I was physically handling sharks, helping other projects also. There was a colleague of mine that was working with nursery area of sharks. And so we went out, we fished for these small baby sharks, and we were able to take measurements and take samples and then to release them back in the water in order for them to go around and grow. And I'm going to show you a nice video of this baby shark being released after all the procedures. And so it's very active and beautiful little animal. And I had this opportunity in Mexico to work with sharks, with many species of sharks, many species of rays. And actually, this video is from another whale shark that we encountered in Baja. And as you can see, it had a fishing net wrapped around the body. And so with the help of other colleagues, we were able to finally free it. And I realized how even big animals can get entangled in those fishing gear. And so it was pretty impressive to see a big animal stuck with a net. But during those times, I also had the opportunity to go to a paradise in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's called Revillagigedo Archipelago, and it's made of 4 small islands, volcanic islands, as you can see behind me with the diving gear. There is a volcano. They are uninhabited islands. And so around these islands, there is a lot of wildlife living, and I got to encounter my favorite animal. These are manta rays, and I had the opportunity to go to this archipelago and to meet my favorite animal. And so after that moment, I decided that I wanted to work with manta rays. And so I had the opportunity to help other projects and also to build my own project. And so during this video, I was helping other researchers that were tracking manta rays that swim in the ocean. And this tracker that I put on her back, it's a transmitter. And so with that, the researchers are able to track their movements. So you can see where a manta ray moves in the ocean. And here you can see video of a beautiful manta approaching me and investigating me. You can see how close it gets and how curious she is. And when I had these encounters in this special place, I realized how big they are. And the most impressive thing is how big their mouth is. So when a manta ray approaches you, you can see how a big mouth they have. And that because manta rays feed on zooplankton. There are these small animals that they filter from the water. And in order to filter the water for these animals, they need to filter big volumes of water. Actually, it has been calculated that they filter about 10 bathtubs of water, of seawater per minute. So imagine the amount of water that they need to filter. And so I started thinking, but what's happening with all the plastics that is in the ocean? So if they need to filter all that water to get their food, are they getting in contact with plastics? Are they ingesting plastics? And are they getting some health problem because of that? And so I started my PhD project, and for 4 years, I've been sampling in this beautiful place in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And we have been doing trawlings with the manta net. That is this manta in the first picture is a net that collects the upper part of the sea, of the surface of the ocean. And in this way, we are able to collect all the plastics and microplastics that float in the surface of the ocean. And after the collection, of course, we analyze the samples and we are able to establish how much plastics and what types of plastics are in the areas of aggregation of manta rays. And so that was most of the part of my project was about plastics and their relationship with manta rays. But moreover to the collection on the water, we also went on the beach to see how much plastic there is in the areas where manta rays live. And we got surprised because in the middle of the ocean, in these remote islands, we found a lot of plastics. So as you can see here, there is a volcano, there are no towns around, nobody around, but we got to find so much plastics that I really got impressed. And as you can see, this area is really pristine, but plastics reach every corner of our world. And so all these species that inhabit that beautiful area are, of course, threatened by plastics and other human pressures. So during my project, I realized how we are all connected, how all the oceans and all the seas are connected, and how every single piece of plastics that enters in the ocean, no matter where it's coming from, but it will end up in another part of the world without any problem, because it's all connected. And so every action, even if it's in the city, even if you are far from the ocean, every action have a consequence on another part of the world. So this made me thinking a lot about our connection with the ocean, and how also people that live very far from the ocean, even in the Alps, are connected to manta rays in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And so I came back. I came back to Italy and to my hometown, and I went in the Mediterranean, and I realized how much plastic we have in the Mediterranean. So when I walked on the beach in Italy, I realized that actually it's way worse than Mexico, where I've been sampling plastics. So I wanted to do something. So I decided to stay in Italy and to do something for this situation, to reduce the plastics in my home country. And so now I work with this beautiful group of people at the ISPRA, that is the Italian Institute for the Protection and Environmental Research. And so we are working in the Mediterranean, in the Italian coast, in order to monitor and propose some guidelines in order to reduce the amount of plastics that there is in the Mediterranean Sea, and especially, of course, in Italian waters. And so I'm very, very lucky because this event is about women in science. And I must say that I'm surrounded by amazing female scientists. So here are some examples of colleagues that I have in my new adventure here in Italy. But I have had amazing women scientists also in my past life in Mexico. And here are some examples. So these girls are all from Mexico, from a Mexican NGO that is called the Pelagios Cacunja. And these girls are rocking science for sharks. So they are conserving sharks and rays in Mexico and doing an amazing job all around the world. And another source of inspiration is, of course, my thesis director, Dr. Lorena Rios. And she has been training me for analyzing microplastics. And she is working in the University of Wisconsin Superior, doing chemistry investigations on plastics. And of course, my explorers family. So here are some of the most amazing female scientists and that I've got to know during my career. So all these girls in whatever part of the world they are really doing great work in science. And then I wanted just to close with a quote that I listened yesterday to Dr. Sylvia Earle event here with Women Blaze Trails. And she said something that I think is very important, that every girl out there listen, and we should tell it to every girl around the world. And it's that they should do something that you're curious about, to find something that intrigues you, and then just keep following that star. So I think that it doesn't matter where you're from. If you're from the mountains, you can go to the ocean. And if you're from the oceans and you love the mountains, you can go and do science in the mountains, you know? And so it doesn't matter where you come from, what your parents do. You can always have your star that guides you and takes you wherever you want. Because we can all do science, even if we are women, and we can even do it better. So I think that we have all the energy, all the capability, and all the ability to do science, and all girls should know that and follow their dreams. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed to know this story from this little girl from the Alps to the ocean.
All right. Awesome, Tanya. Thanks so much for that story. And I know it may have started in the Alps, but that water flows down to the ocean. So I'm not surprised that you followed it and made your way to the ocean. And what I really like to see was in all the different parts of your career so far, it looks like you've had amazing teams supporting you. And it looks like those teams have all had other women on those teams as well. So, I mean, it's very exciting to see. And I'm sure it's a source of constant inspiration for you, but anybody who sees the teams and the work you're doing as well.
Yeah, exactly. I've been very, very lucky because I've had very, very good examples of women doing passionate work and following their dreams and their career and doing everything they can to follow their dreams, basically, because that's what we all do. Because I had I've had a dream job, and I worked hard for it. I used a lot my determination. I think that's very important to do, to be determined and to just go ahead. And no matter what happens, you can always find a way.
Yeah. Well, just like Sylvia said last night, you have to stop asking why. The question is, why not? Why not? Why can't we do that? Why can't we pursue that? And I wonder, you mentioned from your background in the forest, in the Alps, exploring the forest, hunting mushrooms, things like that, that maybe your family and friends were like, at first, why do you want to go down to the ocean? Have you converted them? Have you shown them how exciting the ocean world is?
Yeah, I always remember something that a person from my village told me one time. And it was, how can you go in the ocean so deep, so down? If I even get scared when I shower, I get scared of all that water on me. How can you go so deep? So it's really amazing, because you can have a passion from fields that are not around you. You can always have some connection with a word that you don't even know, but as soon as you get to see it for the first time, you realize your connection and your willingness to follow that path.
Awesome. Well, there's a question here in the chat from Jillian. And she would like to know, what advice would you give to women who might just be starting their marine conservation careers?
Okay, so I think that for ocean conservation, you need to go a lot on field, I think. So every opportunity you have to go in the ocean or to get close to communities that live together with the ocean, and I think that's very, very important. But also to have a lot of self-confidence. So you need to believe in yourself and to follow your thoughts. So a lot of determination, and even if you get some closed doors, doesn't matter. You have to go on and keep on trying and get to where you wanna, where you imagine yourself. So if you want to study dolphins, well, search for dolphins, for people that work with dolphins, and just try to get there as soon as possible and start really hands-on and realizing that connection that will make a path in front of you. So in some way you will get where you want. So sometimes it happens, you don't know how, but like the universe makes a path for you in order to get to your dreams. So I think that's a great thing that everyone should do in order for marine conservation, but also for many other fields,
Of course. Yeah, no question. I mean, sometimes I think people talk themselves out of things before they even try, kind of think about the cons without kind of taking those steps. And this morning we started off in Kenya. We met Jessica, an amazing veterinarian working with Ewaso Lions. And her whole advice was, sure, you may jump into something, you may take a chance and it might not work out, but it's far worse than wondering what if, right? Forever.
Yeah.
What if I had taken Absolutely. That chance? What if I had taken that risk? So it's always valuable to take those chances, take those risks, and chase after something you're passionate about. So we have another question here. This is from Marique, and they are wondering, what organization for shark and ray research did you work with in Mexico?
Okay, so I worked with this NGO that is called Pelagios Cacunja, and it's based in Baja California Sur in La Paz, and they do amazing job with conservation of sharks and rays, both in Mexico, in the Pacific side of Mexico, but also in the Caribbean, but also they have projects all around the world, because they collaborate a lot with many researchers from Europe, the US, from many places. So they do a lot of work with the conservation, and for example, they work a lot with telemetry. So Pelagios Cacunja has made this very big oceanic marine protected area in Mexico, around the islands that where manta rays live, as the videos that you saw in my presentations. So using telemetry and other techniques, they are able to track sharks and rays. And so in this way, they can give to the government all the science data, all the scientific data that support the creation or expansion, for example, of marine protected area.
All right. So we're going to squeeze in one more question here. This one's from the chat here. We know that some animals can choke on plastic, some can get entangled in fish nets. What threats were you seeing with plastics and mantas?
I lost the last part.
Oh, sorry. What threats were you seeing plastic posing to mantas?
Okay, so the threats of plastics can be both physical, as you mentioned. So they can, as they say, choke animals or reduce their ability to move and, of course, to find food. And for example, for marine mammals, they cannot get to the surface to breathe, for example. But also there are other threats that are less visible, so you cannot see it directly happening. And they are the chemicals, the chemical impact. So this happens, for example, when organisms ingest plastics that is actually covered, let's say, covered with many chemicals. So there are some chemicals in the oceans that are very diluted. So when they find the plastics, these chemicals get attached to the plastics, and in this way, the plastic becomes a vector for these pollutants into the animals. And so when the animal eats this plastic, gets also in contact with all those pollutants that can have very bad consequences in the organisms. So this chemical threat is not so evident, as I said, and it's also harder to link with the plastics. But it has been shown that plastics have high concentrations of these chemicals. So now we are in the part that we are trying to understand if those pollutants are transferred to the animals. And this is happening also with manta rays. So one of the hypotheses is that these plastics are transferring these pollutants to their tissues. And from their tissues, of course, they can have bad consequences on their health. For example, they can, for example, reduce their reproductive rate. They can have a neurotoxic effect. Depending on the pollutants and on the concentration, they can have also very bad consequences on their health. So this is one of the effects. But I think that manta rays' most important threat is the fishing. So in most of the places where manta rays distribute in the oceans protect manta rays, but they protect from direct fishing, but not from, of course, bycatch. So many times manta rays get trapped into fishing line or fishing nets, and they can have really bad effects on manta rays. So you can see sometimes mantas with scars or directly with fishing line because they get trapped basically most of the time with their head in between the lobes, the cephalic lobes. So they can get entangled, and in this way they can even lose some parts of their body, like the cephalic lobes. So those two little horns that they have in the head, they are actually fins that they use to funnel water into their mouth when they are feeding. And if a line gets entrapped in these lobes and they cannot free themselves, they get to to be cut. So they cut themselves, and so they miss one part. So I think that that's one of the main threats that they are facing. And also, of course, getting entrapped into fishing nets. That's also cause of death sometimes. And so I think these are the main threats that we are posing to them. But of course, there are many others, like fishing, tourist activities. Sometimes they are invasive, and if not properly done, they can damage manta rays, for example, with the propeller of the boats. That's one of the threats that they can face in the ocean, or the disturbance from the tourists swimming, doing activity in the water with manta rays. That's also a problem for them, especially in sensitive aggregation areas, for example, where they mate or where they go for feeding. That can be a problem because they can change their behavior depending on the touristic activities. I don't know if I answered.
Oh, I think so, absolutely. And I think you can clearly see that the challenges mantas are facing are definitely human induced challenges, from the plastics to the fishing entanglements, just to the pressure. I mean, those videos you shared earlier, they're beautiful, charismatic marine life. People want to be in the water and see them, divers, but unfortunately, some people just don't respect their space, and so that puts some pressure on them as well. So, yeah, beautiful animals, but beautiful marine life, definitely under pressure from our activities. So Tanya, I want to just a huge shout out. Let me just share here. If you want to follow Tanya's work, Tanya's adventures, there's her Twitter, there's her Instagram. Please do follow along. It's great work that you're doing. It's taking you some cool places around the world, some amazing marine life, and an amazing journey from the mountains down to the ocean. And it seems to me like that's where you're going to stay. You planted your flag, and the ocean is the spot for you.
I think so. And I'm happy about that.
Of course. All right. Amazing. Well, Tanya, thank you so much. Great to see you as always. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you can tune into a few more events, and I look forward to the next time we connect.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you everyone that connected with us tonight.
Awesome.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, Tanya.